had to turn it on YouTube here. Welcome to Daikaiju Network's Year-End Kaijupalooza. I am your co-host Kent, and with me is your other co-host. Welcome,
Jason. You gotta turn down your YouTube video there.
I am your co-host Kent, and with me is your other co-host. I have not had that on
Jason,
in 2 minutes.
You gotta turn down your
I haven't had anything on
video
in 2
there.
minutes.
Sorry. It's on my end too, but I was hearing some music and everything.
I have not had anything on, so yeah. You kept telling me to stop, and I'm like, nothing over here. Like everything was quiet.
Okay, go.
But yeah, here we are. This is our year-end Kaijupalooza, where it's basically a smorgasbord of kaiju discussion. So we have a few topics lined up here, and anybody can join in the chats and all that. You can offer your thoughts and opinions, maybe even some topics you wish to bring up. So, but before we do that, is there any housekeeping?
Yeah, I don't know why that was causing issues earlier. I thought I had my YouTube thing closed up or anything, but anyways, as far as well, I didn't know I had the YouTube thing going there. I thought I closed it up, but
I expect an apology.
Well, I thought it was on your end because I thought I didn't even have anything open. That's what I thought. But anyways, as far as the audio streams or anything, you can listen to us on both Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You see down below iHeartRadio and TuneIn. And then as far as our streaming networks, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, D Live, and as well as Periscope. And you can also find us over at any of the social media networks. Just search for Daikaiju Network. And you can find us at our homepage at daikaijunetwork.com.
Also, shoot, I just forgot my train of thought. But one of the things that Jason and we were discussing yesterday with preliminary testing of kind of this feed and what have you is we're thinking about up at the start of the new year in terms of how we proceed with this particular type of format. We've been having just some technical issues, either video and or audio. And so we've been discussing some different approaches that we may be taking starting when we do our first episode here in the new year. By the way, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully everybody is staying safe and healthy. It's kind of a scary time here. And if I guess we just want to dive into our first topic here.
Yeah, I don't know who would like to go first on this.
Well, this is a topic both you and I, by and large, have that we wanted to discuss here for this episode, and that is just this past year. Nothing like any one of us has, whether it's us or out there in the audience, that we've gone through before. I lost a friend to COVID back in early April. Um, and then G Fest got canceled, which I expected to happen once it was announced we were officially in a pandemic back in March. It's been a very scary, stressful, frustrating, anxiety-inducing year, and uh, and obviously that's affected a lot of things. I mean, like I said, it affected G Fest, but on top of that too, it delayed at least two, if not three times, the release of Godzilla vs Kong for theaters now. Now that is officially coming out May 21st of next year on HBO Max for 1 month, and then at the same time in theaters, it'll do its regular theatrical run, and then the standard schedule for DVD and Blu-ray releases will follow. Um, it's been, to say the least, a shit show of a year. But at the same time,
Yeah.
with that being said, um, there have been some silver linings in all this. For example, considering Godzilla vs. Kong, it was initially delayed anyways because they were wanting to do some reshoots, but then they delayed it even more because of the whole pandemic. And I think that is also giving them some extra time and opportunities to go back and to just make sure they are giving us the best final product possible for when we do get it here in like 5-6 months here. So, but there have been some other great things that have come out this year. Well, I guess first and foremost, to the negative first. Let's just get the bad stuff out of the way. Um, for me, it was very strange, obviously, not having G Fest this year.
Mm-hmm.
Fact too that last year is technically now the last year that the festival will be held at the Crown Plaza. Next year, assuming everything with the vaccine and all that stuff goes okay, we'll be able to have it, and it'll be at the Hyatt Regency, like half a mile or so down the road from Crown Plaza.
Probably like
But for as long
quarter
as
mile.
Jason and I have been going, we had gone for 8 consecutive years, I believe it was at that point. And
Yeah,
Crown Plaza is
since
the only place we've known.
yeah, since 2012 we've been going there, I think.
And I understand a lot of people over the last 3-4 years. I've heard rumblings of people complaining about the Crown Plaza. Either there just not being enough space, which definitely has become a factor now, especially since Bill Murray decided to put his mediocre restaurant there in the hotel. And then on top of that too, the air conditioning system has occasionally failed
The last
in
couple
certain areas
years.
of the building. Yeah, in certain parts of the building as well, and that's definitely a big thing because I don't like hot weather. I don't do well in hot weather.
And then it seems like almost every other year there's usually problems with the elevators. They're sort of
Yeah, there have
being
been
on
problems with
maintenance.
elevators. Yeah, and so I understand where people are coming from. To me, though, I'm a sentimentalist. So, even though I understood that, especially after the Caddyshack restaurant got put in there, I realized they have to find a different location because that area where the restaurant resides in, the first couple of years or so we were there, it actually wasn't used. And then it became Artist Alley there for a while. And then after the restaurant moved in, get moved down to the downstairs hallway and stuff for the Artist Alley and what used to be the old video game room, at least when we first started going. Um, and for me, it's a bittersweet sort of um, time. We had discussed this a few months back when we found out that they were going to be moving it to the Hyatt Regency starting next year. And so I can't. Jason and I looked at it. I don't know if we at the time showed
I
anybody photos
I know
of.
we went over it the one time when they announced that they were going to be moving the convention to the Hyatt Regency. They're about half mile away there from Crown Plaza. I think we might have shown photos of it. I can't honestly remember. Probably have to go back a few episodes back. I know
Yeah, I know. I looked through them.
Yeah, but yeah, just from seeing the photos and everything, as far as the convention hall, like the main convention hallway that they have there, and some of the other meetup places, it just looks freaking huge. And I think like the main area where they have a bunch of like the hotel rooms and everything, there's just like a really huge open spot, like dead center of the hotel is like really open. I think probably see the like very top of the ceiling, like look out
An atrium.
sky window or something of the sort. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just off to the side, off to the northern part of the building, is kind of just a big empty convention hall type area there. And then even within the building proper, there are different smaller conference rooms as well. And ever since, not only that they announced it, and then I personally went through those photos, realized, wow, there's a ton of potential here, because that just that convention floor itself is huge. I think that space alone, I think, outdoes most, if not all, entire convention floor space that we ever saw at Crown Plaza. Um, I mean, it's decent size, and like I think I even talked to Jason. I don't think I talked about it on air. You could have that room split up into like 2, 3, or 4 different types of sections. Like you could maybe have half of it like dealer's room, and then split the other half into like 2 sections or whatever. Have it like the bigger convention halls or something like that. I mean, there are different possibilities that could be done.
And I think it's double the space, double the convention hall space from Hyatt Regency over the Crown Plaza, because I think the Crown Plaza has maybe a little over 50,000 total square footage of convention hall. And I think the Hyatt Regency there has probably a little over 100,000 square footage of total convention hall. And I think before having everything at Crown Plaza, I think they did one year at that convention center that's just right across the street from both the hotels there off to the east from Crown Plaza, and then directly south from the Hyatt Regency Hotel there. But of course, that's just way too much convention space for something like G-Fest after thinking about it over the years, because I know I've mentioned about it several times in the past, and of course they've done so, I think, once or twice. But then now with the convention space from the Hyatt Regency there, I think it's probably a good enough for G-Fest to potentially grow into, and I think it'd be a good place to be there for many years up until the time when they just don't have enough space.
Well, and the thing is, and I think we've talked about this periodically at the end of most G-Fests, where G-Fest always seems to get a spike when there's a major motion picture. We saw it in 2014. I don't know if
and
we
then last year, because I think last year sort of was
it was
probably at the same level.
Though.
Maybe at the same level, or maybe just under.
I think in the 8 or so years we've been going, the particular G-Fest convention that had the most people, it was 2014 or 2015. I know 2014 saw a big spike, but part of me thinks 2015 may have been larger, because again, Godzilla later in 2014 would have come out on home video. People would have seen it, and then word of mouth would have come through. and then maybe the following year people would have checked it out.
But
The thing about
I would also thought that maybe the other off years could potentially like before like between 2014 and as you mentioned 2015 between 2014 and 2019 I could thought that there might have been something where they've surpassed their attendance records.
They have. The thing is that when they have had growth, it has, with the exception of a couple of years, like 2014, for example, where they saw, I think, like a 1,500 head growth, I think, something along those lines. Most of the growth ended up, like after 14 or 15, the growth, I think, subsided a bit, but it still was decent attendance. Of the time it's been very steady, with the possible exceptions. Like, if things were under normal circumstances next year, or even this year, by and large, with Godzilla vs. Kong coming out, although I think pushed it back to November before the pandemic, I think, or if that was after. I keep getting confused whether they pushed that.
I know. Yeah, they like originally they had it in March of this year, near my
Yeah.
birthday, and then once I think they announced to push it around Memorial Day weekend before the whole thing came about, and then once all that happened, I think they probably didn't really mention about pushing it back until maybe somewhere in April. I'm guessing that. I think that sort of makes sense. And then they pushed it back to November around Thanksgiving week or weekend. And then probably several months after that, I think towards, I'm guessing September or something, that they announced that they were going to push it back to Memorial Day weekend of next year. And I think that's been there since.
Yeah, so let's just say, for sake of argument, we have no pandemic and the thing was supposed to come out in March. A pretty good attendance this year, because Godzilla vs. Kong, I mean, this is something I think I've even said on this podcast once or twice. It would be nice to have an updated version of that. I mean, that's something outside of Godzilla vs. Gamera, which by and large is never going to happen. People have been wanting this rematch, and I think G-Fest would have seen attendance numbers go through the roof this year, because Godzilla vs. Kong would have generated so much excitement and enthusiasm about all this. People would have wanted to be a part of all that. And so, getting back more on topic, this Hyatt Regency, I think, the home of G-Fest for many years to come, because outside of the convention hall, which by itself alone provides more than enough space for an average G-Fest, at least the ones we've been attending for nearly 8 years now, than enough space. And then even within the building proper, you got odd number of other conference type halls that very well will be used for panels and the like as well. I mean, there is so much space. And the thing is that, and we've said this before on this podcast, tokusatsu is a very niche genre here in the States. It has definitely... Yeah, and kaiju, is a subgenre of all that. But things like anime and stuff started growing in popularity in the early-ish 2000s here in the States. That, in turn, I think, got interest in Japanese pop culture for a lot of people, which, again, introduced them to all that. Then in the mid-2000s, you saw classic media on TriStar releasing a lot of Godzilla films, the classic ones, the Showa, on DVDs. So you had a big boom there for 4, 5, 6 years of these films coming out on DVD. The original Godzilla, Gojira, in 2004 was making a 50th anniversary roundabout in select theaters across the country, and then Classic Media, for the first time ever in the States, brought that film out on the DVD. So, you had this. And now I will argue that things are kind of leveled out. I think you will see numbers fluctuate up and down, in the coming years. Again, assuming things with the vaccine for the COVID workout and everything by the time next year's G Fest is supposed to take place, I think we could see an incredible attendance at next year's G Fest. But I think the year after that, unless something happens with Toho for a theatrical piece, which my understanding is I don't think that's coming anytime soon. They're working on this anime miniseries at the moment. I think the numbers will actually come down a little bit from what we see, next year. And Regency, again, from just the photos I've seen, I've never been in the hotel myself. I've seen it many times, obviously, because you can see it clear as day.
I know there
from
was
Crown Plaza. But,
I know there was 1 year where I thought about staying the night over at the Hyatt Regency there. I know this year when we were planning, when we were still going to go to G Fest before everything gone to the shitter, but then when they canceled it, I was still sort of planning on going to Kent for maybe about a week or so, and then possibly stay the night over at the Hyatt. But then, of course, everything sort of fell apart, and Kent didn't want me to come over, sort of the fears and everything. And so me traveling over to both Chicago and Illinois or Michigan didn't quite happen, especially with the Chicago area during that time, where that you would have to, like, if you're staying the night there or something like that, you would literally have to stay for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No matter what. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that there is plenty. The Hyatt Regency, unless for whatever reason it gets to be too expensive to host the convention there, I honestly don't see ever really outgrowing that space, because again, it's such a niche. It's such a niche. And then on top of that, too, there are like 4 or 5 other kaiju type related held in various parts of the country over the course of the year too. I don't remember most of them off the top of my head. I think MonsterPalooza on some level has incorporated kaiju. There is another one that is sort of dedicated to kaiju. Like I said, I don't remember a lot of these names, but I'm aware, and I became aware of them back over the summer, that there are a handful of others that are kaiju centric. MonsterPalooza deals with a lot of things monsters, not just kaiju, but they've always sort of had kaiju as a subset of their convention, and that I think has very slowly grown in popularity over the recent years. From my understanding, from listening to other people who have attended that, people have other options. I know Chicago is more centrally located, but it's still, especially if you live in the southern part of the country, like if you live in Austin, Texas or whatever, that's quite a jaunt still. It's not like it's Kansas City, Missouri, or, or St. Louis or whatever, where it's definitely more centrally located in the country. Yeah, I know for some people it's a big trek, but, definitely millions of people over the decades have done it. And and I think G-Fest 2 is the first and obviously the oldest kaiju centric convention. I think that will always, by and large, I think be the big one when it comes to kaiju. And again, I don't see G Fest really outgrowing this space. I would love to see that happen because then, the whole country becomes kaiju nerds. And I think that would be good for the world to have more monster love in the world.
Yeah.
But the thing is that unless, like I said, things get too expensive for people to like stay at the hotel or whatever. I
Yeah,
don't see the
especially
convention moving anytime soon.
yeah, especially with the rise of some of the prices over the years, because I know we've sort of seen it steadily increase over the last 8 straight years since we've gone to it, and even with reserving the hotel room for Crown Plaza before everything got canceled and what have you. But it'd be interesting to see what the price is going to be for the Hyatt Regency Hotel come for the G Fest convention when that takes place. I'm not sure. I don't think. Well, I don't think they have done that yet. No, I think we did reserve it. I'll have to actually go back when we get done doing the special here. I'll have to take a look and what the price is this time around, if it has sort of increased. It's been a while since I've last looked at it, but I think the last price from Crown Plaza, I think it was 105 a night or something of the sort. But yeah, but yeah, we'll
I made
definitely
money.
yeah. But for the years to come with Hyatt Regency, it'd be interesting if the prices will sort of stay the same as is, or if it's going to steadily increase over the years.
It'll always steadily increase because it's that whole deal with
Well, and then
inflation.
yeah,
Inflation on average is like 4% a year. So, because I think all 8 years we went to Crown Plaza, it always increased on some level. It was just a question of how much. And some years it went up a lot more than others. Other years it went up maybe, few bucks, so to speak. Not too terribly much. And,
hmm
this is, the next time we end up there, whether it's next year, the year before that, who knows? I tell you, I think I may make a trip down to Crown Plaza. I know a lot of people. Again, going back to how we first started this particular conversation, a lot of people were kind of done with it. But like I said, that's the only home of G-Fest you and I have ever known. There's been a lot of wonderful memories there. Um,
well, and I know,
me,
and I
it's
know
kind of
we,
a sad time at the moment.
and I know you and I have talked about that when we do trek to G Fest from your to Chicago from your place there, that we would maybe spend like a day or two before going over to the Hyatt Regency there, uh, just to sort of, kind of get that nostalgia
Hmm.
thing going before the whole convention starts.
Yeah, I mean, now I will have other housekeepers harassing me as far as whether or not I'm taking pictures. Taking pictures? Just,
Well,
I will never let that go. I
we'll
mean,
just have to
just
see if that still happens over at the Regency.
it probably will happen. They probably thought they could pick on me because I kind of look like an 18, 19-year-old kid. And it's like, no, double that. Like, then you have my, then you have my age. So,
Maybe
go
maybe
jump up a
just
bit.
grow a beard or something.
Yeah, I'd be like, here's my license. You see that birth date there? Yeah, I'm a lot older than you think I am. But yeah, it's just, I'm going to miss Crown Plaza. I mean, I could go on and on as far as reminiscing about Crown Plaza over these years.
And then
Um,
and then the other thing too is that we would have to walk a little bit of the longer distances just to get to that entertainment
yeah,
center area there because I think the closest thing for us now would be the theater there, and I know it's going to be a little bit of a longer trek just to go to that Five Rose Pub thing that we always go to every
Hmm.
time when we go to Chicago there. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a longer trek just to get to some of those things this time around, which would probably be going to be
Yeah.
more of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I mean, for me to end this part on my part, um, but Hyatt Regency, I think there are tons of possibilities with this. But the sad thing is that yeah, I'm gonna miss Crown Plaza. I mean, that's the only place I've known for G Fest to be during the 8 years we have gone. It's been a wonderful place. We made some friends with a handful of the staff there, including taking pictures. Woman, I say that sarcastically, but it was a great place. Yeah, it sucked when the air conditioners went out. I agree and all that. Um, to me, it's a bittersweet sort of thing. I think it's a good thing they're moving because they need to. They need the space. Um, but at the same time, too, it's just like, man, Crown Plaza was, kind of the place. It seemed like every time we went there, we would go through those back doors after we parked our cars. It's like, wait a minute, weren't we just here a week ago? Like, we
Yeah.
got to know just about every nook and cranny of that place
Hmm.
over the years, almost a decade.
But
And it's
at
a sad,
least
sad.
at least just be thankful that we're not going to be going too far away from the Crown Plaza there. Unlike some of these other places where they probably relocate to a different city or different state for that matter.
Yeah. But to kind of transition over to some of the positives over this year and even a tad bit into late, kind of around this time last year, there's been some silver lining to all this. Um, we've had quite a few Ultraman series and films being released on the Blu-ray. We've also what was it?
Well,
Late July
well,
had
and speaking of the Ultraman, we finally have Super Eye Productions official YouTube channel premiering the new Ultraman series, Ultraman Z, which I'm actually going to be talking about that in a little bit later on in the show. Just my thoughts on it. But yeah, it's like they're not only releasing the new TV show of Ultraman Z, but they're also showing some of the retro TV shows on the YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. And so you've got all that. We had at the end of July the Gamera complete collection, the whole one volume set that I talked about a number of months ago. Now they're re-releasing some of those into Showa and Heisei collections. And then too, something that I think I had touched upon briefly a couple months back, but I think sort of flew a little bit under the radar for a lot of people because it is an obscure film, is Arrow, who brought out the Gamera series, um, Warning from Space on Blu-ray as well. We finally, for the first time, have a more um, have a have a better presentation of the film, both in Japanese and the English. And there is a commentary track. I had talked about that. It's a weird commentary track because it stops at like a little over the 1 hour mark. I don't know why it did, and part of me thinks that because there's not a ton of information on the film, and so Stuart Galbraith, I think, just kind of felt like there's no need to track. I'm not sure, although I thought you could still talk about what's happening on screen, I guess. But a very informative and yet interesting commentary track to listen to as you watch like minutes of the film or however long it was. Um, it was really good to have a better version of that film. Because by and large, for years, all we had was the alpha video one. That
And
was sort
yeah,
of weird, and
yeah, and the Alpha Video distributors notoriously, for me, anyways, notoriously known to have really poor quality like products as far as uh, the the way that the video is, especially with the gap of video DVD that I have. I think you gave that one.
I gave it to you, yeah.
And it was just really poor quality film wise.
Yeah, I mean, basically think of, the old school VHS pan and scan with video artifacts, sound artifacts, and just transfer that over to DVD. I mean, that's kind of what you got.
Without ever doing literally any work on trying to clean the film.
Well, yeah, and the thing is Alpha, I don't think they're even in business anymore. I think they've long since.
For me, I think as far as their covers, especially the Gamera ones that they've done in the past, I really like their covers, but
their covers are good, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that they should have taken more time as far as cleaning the films, but I think maybe around that time or something that they had, I think it was Shout Factory or something that they also had rights to the films as well, and I think maybe around the same time that they released the better qualities of the film.
Well, and they had the licenses. I don't think Alpha technically did. And not to mention, too, I think they were a much smaller company. They may not have had the capabilities to go in there and effectively clean them if they did indeed have the transfers. But the thing is that they probably literally got them off of I think the VHS copies and just kind of let it be. With Gamera, Warning from Space, and the upcoming Invisible Man films, all from Arrow, I think Dai has been a lot more easy to work with than Toho. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I posted this week and a half, 2 weeks ago on our about the Invisible Man, the duology coming out onto Blu-ray from Arrow. Arrow is now becoming kind of the new Shout Factory, so to speak, where they're releasing a lot of these films that a lot of us kaiju tokusatsu fans really will enjoy. And
I probably wouldn't say them being the next Shout Factory. I probably would also add Mill Creek Entertainment in that retrospect as well.
Yeah, I mean, I give Mill Creek, a lot of crap, obviously, because I'm not a fan in terms of how they do the subtitles with their Ultraman stuff. I think
their hometown. They're my hometown. Darn it!
I don't care. Go knock on their door and tell them to fix the whole subtitle things. That's driving me nuts.
You do it. It's your thing.
You're right there. Go take your tablet and put my face up, and I'll talk to him. But Mill Creek. Yeah, I will give Mill Creek props. Look, I'd rather have something than nothing. But at the same time, too, like I talked about with, I think a couple times over this year with Mill Creek with the subtitles. Look, I feel like roughly 40 to 50% of the time I'm getting gypped by them because I can't effectively read their subtitles 40 to 50% of the time, bare minimum. But with Arrow and the upcoming Invisible Man films that are coming out next year, it's been a good year for all of us. I was never much of an Ultraman fan until about 8 years ago. I'm still a little reluctant to get into some of the newer stuff just because I like a lot of the classic look of the Showa era type stuff with the monsters and the goofy stories. That's kind of where my really shines with a lot of things, not just kaiju, but Ultraman and what have you. That's kind of like the most. That's not to say the Heisei or the Millennium isn't good. I think they are. It's just that I think to some degree the Heisei and Millennium eras to try to take themselves a bit more seriously than the Showa era used to. So, for me, it's like, the world is a dark and kind of scary place, enough as it is. We don't need more real life stuff being played out in our entertainment. That's my thought on that. But
in some of the earlier, newer stuff from Tiga and onwards. I think up until maybe right around Ultraman X and maybe the end project. Um, like some of the stuff were a little bit goofy in a way, but they're trying to make some of the stories a little bit more consistent episode per episode as time went on since Tiga, I believe. And then as far as the end project, that was right around the time when they were trying to reboot Ultraman with I think it was the 2002 or 2004 Ultraman film where they redesigned Ultraman there, and then they did, I think, one or two TV shows in the end project era where they were trying to make it more serious in a way, but I think they sort of gone away from that, and I think there were some criticisms with that. I'm not entirely sure with it. I haven't really delved too deep in it, but I think from Max, I think that was after the end project and onwards. They try to balance things out a little bit with some of the comedy and then some of this serious stuff, obviously. And I think the last few years since I've sort of continually watched the newer stuff, Sans, or with the exception of RB and Taiga, because never had the chance to see those streamed over here for whatever reason there was. That they started to sort of experiment with some of the storyline slash plot per series, and I think it gave the whole show or franchise a little bit more diversity as far as the story and everything. And then with Ultraman Z, which I'll get into, and I'm not going to discuss anymore. I think they've really improved, I would sort of say.
Yeah, and I just in the Gamera collection, those of you who saw my segment, gosh, what was it? Maybe August. I want to say it was August
with your,
when I
with your little long spiel there.
That set came with a lot of stuff. Anybody who purchased that big initial set knows how much material you got in there. You didn't just get the movies. You got some collectible art cards in there. You got sort of a behind the scenes book on the series with a few extra nuggets of information in there as well. You also had the entire Dark Horse run of Gamera comics in there as well, which wasn't long, but my gosh, it still was really fun to have. And not to mention just the extras you got on the discs themselves. To me, the commentary tracks, with the exception of one, were fantastic. They were really well done and very informative. I learned an awful lot about the behind-the-scenes stuff of, again, except one. And I've been a Gamera fan since late 90s, early 2000s. So for over 2 decades, I've been a fan of this character, and I've known just the absolute bare bones. But I, through those commentaries, learned an awful lot about kind of the evolution of the character over the years and just sort of what its place was within Japanese culture and pop culture, and just sort of obviously what was going on behind the scenes with Dai in terms of this installment, and then you transfer into the Heisei. What was Dai wanting to do with the character then as they entered into the mid 90s after like a year hiatus? And then with the 2006 Gamera the Brave film, kind of what was Dai thinking of there? What were they trying to accomplish with that film? What did they have? Did they have some sort of idea of maybe trying to have another era of Gamera films going on there as well? Just because I am a fan of this stuff.
And we do have one question here from George Guzman.
Yeah.
He asks, do you think that Toho will one day have a change of heart and release the dub versions of the way Dai did with their features?
Um, I don't know. The thing is that with Toho, my understanding is that when they've done dubs, they've done international dubs. Like, for example, the best example of Toho doing dubs, you look no further than the Heisei series from Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah through Godzilla vs. Destroya, and even a handful of the Millennium films. Well, um, so in a technical sense, we have gotten dubbed versions, the Toho dub versions of some of those films, and I know a lot of people despise the '90s dubs, uh, with the possible exception of Return of Godzilla and Biollante. Although I guess the recent Return of Godzilla that we've gotten on DVD and Blu-ray over the last 3-4 years, that's an international dub on there. It's not the New World Pictures dub, the Roger Corman studio that you would get from Godzilla 1985, the American edit of that film. So have seen that. And the unfortunate thing is that a lot of people don't like those dubs. They don't believe the voice actors have a lot of personality to their characters. They're using a handful of people to do multiple characters. And on top of that, too, a lot of fans don't think they really try to become their characters, so to speak. And emotion when they're expressing emotion, to bringing about those nuances when a character is going through different phases of growth and decline, etc. I'm not a huge fan of those 90s dubs either. I don't think they're as terrible as a lot of fans say they are. Are they the best? No. Are they the worst though? No, not really. I mean, I've heard worse. The dub that you get, that we've gotten most of the time since the late 90s with Destroy All Monsters, has been the international dub. Of course, that changed with a more recent Blu-ray release where you also had the older dub. I don't know if that was done by Titcher or not. One that older fans who saw it either in theaters or on television back in the day grew up with, they think that's superior. I don't think it is. I think that one's actually worse than the international dub. But then again, I grew up with the international dub. So, I have some biases there.
Yeah, for me, I think when it comes to the dub versions of a lot of these movies, there's just certain kinds of dubs from these voice actors that I think that they just fit really well with the characters that they were assigned to for these movies.
Yeah, and the art of doing voice acting is sort of a lost art. It's how a lot of fans of kaiju, the loss of pseudomation in many respects.
Obviously, they're still being used on the animes and stuff nowadays.
Yes. The thing is, though, this isn't like the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s where you were importing a lot of Japanese/foreign films, and you had these voice actors, career voice actors, doing the work here. It's a different time. Anybody that wants a dub, they either go through the international dub, in which some studios will provide, because they understand Godzilla has a bigger reach than just Japan. But not only that, like, for example, the Godzilla anime trilogy, that dub was done by Netflix. That was done house. Toho didn't do any of that. No third party did that. That was done in-house with Netflix. And that's sort of the thing. It's just kind of like how you occasionally will see some people with the Ultraman sets being released by Mill Creek. How come they aren't providing some sort of dub? Well, the thing is that for a lot of these sets, there is no dub. There never was a dub because, unlike the original Ultraman,
Well, yeah, like with the original Ultraman, they only just had maybe like just certain uh, audio from the dub version. Like if like you've seen in that one DVD set that you have and everything, there's
yeah,
certain areas where they didn't have the actual dub version of the audio for that, and they had to go switch over to certain time spots from the dub version to the original Japanese language with some of the subtitling on there, and then once they had the and then back to the dub version.
yeah, and that's just kind of the thing. Mill Creek understands that something like Ultraman, while they will sell a fair amount of sets, in fact, they sold out of a lot of their earlier sets when the pandemic started because people knew they were going to be home for a while. So why not buy something to watch for a while? They understand though voice actors is still pretty expensive. Um, and they understand that their audience, they aren't dummies, that their audience will be able to figure out, okay, you have one person doing two or three people here, you have another person doing another two or three people. Um, they understand their audience. I will give them that. Mill Creek understands that their audience is very keen stuff and recognizing it. But the thing is it are they going to kind of get their monies back at the very least, if not more importantly, make a profit on these things when they sell them? And I think in their eyes, and I think rightfully so, it's not worth taking the financial risk of paying a handful of people how many thousands of dollars when it's not going to be selling bonkers. It's not like the latest superhero film from Hollywood where you're for sure you're going to be making quite a few sales just on the physical releases of these sets, and it's just cheaper to bring one or two people in to do subtitles. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and then I really can't think of anything else as far as this, but I know one of the other good things that came out from this year, as far as 2020, is uh, besides G Fest canceling and stuff for this year, we did have at least Kyle Yount and then some of the other known podcasts. Uh, they've sort of come together and done their uh, this whole online convention. We sort of did too with Daikaiju Fest right around the same time that G Fest was originally supposed to be commencing.
We got a question here. Is Godzilla vs. Kong getting another delay? I thought that we would have seen a trailer or teaser by late December. My understanding is that the last delay was sometime like late summer, early fall, and the current release date is May 21st of next year. So my understanding is it hasn't been delayed for like the last 3-4 months. As far as a trailer and all that, I know a lot of people have been wondering about that. I don't know. I don't pay too close enough attention to that. I'm just one of those people that it'll show up when it'll show up.
That
But the thing is that there's been no word from either Warner Brothers or Legendary on a trailer. My understanding is nobody from either of those camps has said there will be a trailer by such a time. I think
I
it's
know
just a lot of fan speculation going like from previous history with other films saying, well, if a film's coming out by this point, then by this date or by this period, you should have a trailer. That's not always the case. So, no, I have not heard anything from Warner Brothers or Legendary on a trailer. That's all fan speculation
the
at this
only
point.
the
So,
only the only thing that we do know as of right now is that Warner Brothers had this 6-hour panel, long panel from this CCXP convention that was down in Brazil, I believe. And then
Mhm.
they only just showed at least a few seconds worth of footage of both Godzilla and Kong, which we just talked about in our previous episode. There's really not much besides just those very short seconds worth of footage from the movie. But as far as what I've seen from that, I think visual effects wise, it looks pretty damn spectacular in my opinion.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry too much about trailers. I know we're all getting anxious for them. Um, in my personal opinion, will see a teaser probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. That's just me speculating, though, because I would assume that probably before the end of January we will get something by that point. Will we or not? I don't know. It's just sort of my personal spidey sense, so to speak, kicking in. I mean, Warner Brothers and Legendary hasn't said or posted anything. I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be on the hunt for that or getting too anxious about it until it happens.
Or just really don't have it linger in your mind for a whole lot.
Yeah, I know that's easier said than done because we're all getting super excited about this, and this thing has been delayed several times already. But it'll happen when it'll happen. Just be patient. That's all I can say.
Yeah. But yeah, just going about this previous year as far as us doing the whole Daikaiju Fest, and well as Kyle Young doing the Kaiju Con line there, and then some of the other well-known podcasts, and then some of the guest appearances on his uh, online convention there, as well as us doing things. What did you like about the whole online convention experience, both what Kyle Yount did and what we sort of did for the 2 days?
I mean, I like the fact that you can put a convention together. I mean, Kyle and his group put theirs together over a longer period of time than we did, because obviously ours was just you and I. We didn't have numerous panels of different people. Ours was just something to sort of, at the time, fill in a little bit of that void that was being missed of G-Fest. It was just to sort of to keep kaiju excitement alive, more or less. But what Kyle and the people who worked with him did, I mean, that, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm almost positive it took, because let's see, I think G-Fest was officially canceled
around middle May, I believe.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So then my guess is that probably within a matter of a few days to a week or two, Kyle probably was like, we need to do something about it, and started quickly getting people together. Yeah, my guess is that you're probably looking at a month and a half-ish worth of work on his part and others being put together and all that. And I'm very grateful that he reached out to us at one point, asking if we could be a part of a panel. But by that point, we were already
sort of
in the
thought
middle
about
of
it, yeah.
putting our own thing together, unfortunately. And so
Well, he still sort of
out this year,
he
but
still sort of put us as part of the whole Kaiju Con experience.
so I think one of the great things about it was that you got some sort of a convention. It may not have been the convention that you were hoping for in terms of obviously being in person at a hotel and mingling amongst fellow fans in person, but by golly, it was still something, and it was actually done very well. What Kyle and his folks did was absolutely amazing. Being able to put together all these different panels, and even putting together kind of a dealer's room, so to speak, via Facebook. my understanding is people who were selling through that online convention did make money, so that's a success.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I don't know how he did it. I don't have the wherewithal, nor the patience, nor the connections to put something like that together. Um, but it was done very well. It was very professional, very informative, very fun. I got in on most of it that particular weekend. And yeah, I just think, too, especially with the online model, you have a further reach as well. I am 100% willing to bet that you reached more people with that Kaiju Con line than obviously you could with people in person for many obvious reasons.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I sort of
I think
missed
it was
out.
a huge success.
Yeah, I sort of missed out the first few hours worth of Kaiju Conline because I was doing a little day trip up to Duluth there for about several hours or so. But I did fortunately see quite a bit of it when I got back home there. But yeah, it's yeah, it was just sort of a little bit different this time around with G Fest canceled or pushed back to next year. But it was at least good to see some of the familiar faces that you would typically see during that time of the year, uh, with them doing certain panels here and there. But yeah, it's just always good to see a lot of the people in person just to kind of get that uh, experience in a way. It's yeah, it's just sort of that you don't get that certain feeling that you would do if you were in person meeting all these familiar faces and get to experience certain things at a convention in person than just seeing things online.
Yeah. I mean, really nothing else to say other than, yeah, it was done really well. And I can only imagine how just difficult it was to scramble people together so that they had enough time to do what they needed to do and to get people to come on board and then put something together in about a month and a half ish to not only make it work but to provide enough content and to make sure everybody had enough time to do what they needed to do to provide within the online convention itself. I mean, it just to me, it had to be exhausting. It's
Well,
hard
I
enough
know
for me just to
it
put one
was
of these together, and we usually do ours every other week.
well, it
But
was it was pretty exhausting once we got done with the final day of Daikaiju Fest. I remember, I think it was either you or I both that we just mentioned online. It's like I hope we don't do this again.
well, and I had fun doing it. The thing
Yeah.
is that um, like I said, we didn't reach out to anybody else. We didn't have the time to really try to put something together that maybe was bigger. Not to mention, we just don't have the connections. Now, granted, we didn't ask, but
Well, plus I think if we did do it, we just didn't really have a whole lot of time. Plus, we were just trying to come up with certain ideas as far as panels.
well, yeah, and I mean, we had back-to-back days, of like 3-hour shows basically. And, that's exhausting, it is. But, thankfully ours was decently attended online and ours wasn't as spectacular, but,
Yeah.
ours was just meant to sort of bring in uh, just kind of the excitement. I mean, we never felt that we were replacing G Fest. It was more of just trying to
Trying to
kind
keep
of
that,
insert some kaiju joy where there was none this year.
or just try to keep that whole aspect of the whole convention feeling going right around that time, even along with Kaiju Conline, which I'm guessing it's a certain aspect that they were trying to go for as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think they were successful. I mean, I was very, very impressed with with what took place and how much content there was, and just in general what was available, even just outside the virtual convention halls. So it's just well done.
Mm-hmm. So, if you don't have anything else as far as to look back to on this year, I don't know if you want to talk about as far as what to look forward to in 2021 here, or should we just
I'm
sort of?
going to just say this right now, as far as looking forward. And if you have sensitive ears, I advise you to cover them right now. This fucking pandemic ending. I am tired of it. I really am. I'm tired of the people dying. I'm tired of being cooped up. I'm tired of not being able to do the things that I normally do. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is this dumb thing being done. We got to For a question, I am
here.
cautiously optimistic about Godzilla Singular Point. Is this a one-season series? If successful, perhaps Netflix will order a season 2. Maybe you know a little bit more about this than I do, Jason. My understanding is that this is a mini-series. I don't think this is supposed to be a show.
I think it might be a mini series. I'll have to look
I'm looking it up
more into
right
this
now.
here. I would say Sci-Fi Japan would have more information at this, but when it comes to Netflix, if they do uh, like regular series and stuff, I know they're sort of notoriously known to do maybe a season or a couple or a few, and then they just all out of the middle of nowhere they just decide to cut or cancel a TV show when it's everything's getting good. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised that that's going to be the case if this is going to be a regular series. Um, let me just
What
search
I'm
for it here.
seeing here, according to Wikipedia, is that it is an anime television series. Out in Japan April 2021. So I guess it is a TV series.
Yeah,
I
it just says
initially
all
thought it
new.
was a miniseries.
Yeah, it just says all new anime original series, so it doesn't really say anything as far as a mini series. Um, so
If
yeah, it looks.
successful, will it be a season 2? If it is indeed a television series, yeah, why not? I mean, if they're getting eyeballs and all that, sure.
But
Um,
I'm not gonna hold up to Netflix because they're sort of notoriously known when the series gets really good that they somehow, for whatever reason, that they tend to axe or cancel TV shows. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised when it comes to Netflix.
the only thing I love Netflix, but the one thing I dislike about them is that if they not license, but if they, well, I guess, yeah, if they license something like the anime Godzilla trilogy, for example, that they hold on to those licenses for a very long time, and and an awfully long time to see that stuff come out onto home video here in the States. Um, and I don't know if we will ever see the anime trilogy officially come out here in the States. I hope we do.
Although we do
Um,
have, was it the international version? I think it was
uh,
Malaysian
but
DVD copies.
that's the thing, though. If you're wanting home video copies of some of this stuff, you got to go elsewhere and hope that maybe if there is even a dub available initially, that that dub is included on that set. Um, with Netflix, is that will we ever see the anime trilogy officially get released here in the States? I don't know, but time will tell. And the thing is, they hold on to those licenses for many years, like 4 or 5 years or something. I don't know. They hold on to them for a long time. And like I said, that's the reason why we have not seen an official anime release here, because that they still hold on to that thing. As long as they're having it on their streaming services, we're not going to see any sort of official release of something like that here in the States.
So yeah, I probably wouldn't get your hopes up. and two is it just all depends on the eyeballs that watch the TV show. So you're just gonna have to wait and see when it gets to that point.
Yeah, and I mean, again, having something is better than nothing. But my disappointment with Netflix again is I like the physical release stuff. You probably can't see it here, but I got a whole, a part of a big shelf full of DVDs and Blu-rays. I got some over here as
And then for
well.
me, it's just I've got a whole case full of DVDs and Blu-rays here, just the back of me there.
Yeah, and I like the home video, and I'm fine if it's on like streaming services for maybe a year or something like that. But it's like I eventually want my Blu-ray or DVD, and like I said, until Netflix, stupid little rule that they have, it's seen something like the anime trilogy and this new Singular Point come out officially in the States on home video is going to be a long time.
Mm-hmm. I would say the same thing when it comes to that Ultraman anime show that they also have on Netflix as well, and they did
I forgot about that.
they did the second season to that, and I think since gosh, I think somewhere in early 2019, I decided to unsubscribe from Netflix because I didn't really see much as far as anything new in that regard.
I still need to go back and finish that Ultraman anime.
Yeah, and I haven't really resubscribed to Netflix ever since. And then with there being some controversies recently going on with Netflix, I just sort of haven't really gone back. But maybe one of these days down the road, I'll check it out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as what to look forward to in 2021, is there anything else that you have in mind?
I mean, obviously Godzilla versus Kong. I told you, but we're Xfinity cable customers, and so we get HBO Max as part of our cable subscription service. So I'm all set for all these wonderful Warner Brother releases, and I'm being serious. I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. There's a lot of their movies I'm looking forward to this next year. In fact, I just saw Wonder Woman the other day. So I'm looking forward to seeing like all these superhero ones. There's a new Mortal Kombat movie coming out next year too. I'm anxious to see. Obviously, Godzilla versus Kong, and being able to see those in the comfort of my own home for a month is something I'm really anxious to see. Because life has to move on to some degree during a pandemic, and and a lot of these studios hits. And yeah, a lot of these films are still going to go to the theaters. Are they going to make much money? No, because, well, we're in a pandemic. And they're going to take a hit, but it's like, look, we're not just going to keep these things sitting on a shelf because for a while there, no one knew how long it was going to take to get a vaccine. They were saying anywhere between 12 to 18 months. Well, by and large, you had a couple companies get one certified within 9 months. So I think you're definitely going to be different on that front here going into next year. But still, just being able to see them in the comfort of my own home, I get 30 days to watch them. And, I don't have to worry about going to a theater, maybe picking up COVID and stuff like that. Would I prefer to see them in the theaters? Of course. However, I will say, I don't have surround sound, but I got one of those sound bars with a subwoofer deal. Wonder Woman 84 had superb sound quality. Like to some degree, it felt theater quality. It was very, very good. How they were able to do that was amazing. Like it felt like you got some of the theater experience watching it through HBO Max. It was incredible. But I'm just looking forward to these movies. I'm looking forward to getting the fuck out of this pandemic.
And then
I'm looking forward to normalcy is what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's sort of funny that you mentioned about the whole aspect of the online streaming and the whole theater experience when it comes to Godzilla vs. Kong, because I know that's one of the main topics on my list here. But let me just sort of put in my comments here of what to look forward to 2021 is obviously, as Kent mentioned, Godzilla vs. Kong finally get around to finally seeing that film after probably a little over a year or so since March there, but and then of course finally try to get to G Fest there, seeing some of the familiar faces, hopefully, and then yeah, just try to get things back to normal here. Although I sort of been trying to do some of the same usual things, but as well as wearing the mask, living in Minnesota with all the rules and stuff that they've got here, because recently they've closed up indoor or in dine-ins and everything, so now it's takeout again. But yeah, so just try to do some of the normal things here and there as much as I can. But yeah, as well as trying to travel next year more as much as I can. So yeah, so it's just mainly just try to get things back to normal, sort of thing. But yeah, as far as the experiences, as far as watching Godzilla vs. Kong, this is one of the things that I put on my list, and I think just probably start delving in specifically. I wanted to talk about at least the pros and cons of seeing Godzilla vs. Kong streaming.
The pros and cons.
Streaming versus theater experiences, and as far as the pros and everything, as far as the theater, I mean, you get to go with friends, you get the that whole theater experience where you don't get it as much compared to when you're at home and everything. But as far as the cons of theater going, it's just the pricing of the tickets just to go to just to see one movie, and then they've got some of these other experiences when it comes to like the IMAX experience, 3D experience, which I know they're sort of waning a bit, but they still have those things. Well, and then of course the IMAX 3D thing, which is still going on and everything. And then just dealing with for some of those that are out there that they have to deal with so many people and everything. So what do you got here, Ken?
We got a question here. Curious, what was the last movie you saw in the theater? Mine was Fathom Events' presentation of the original King Kong back in March. Then a couple of days later, they shut down all the movie theaters.
My
the last movie I saw was Rambo: Last Blood, September of last year.
My last theater experience was just a little over a year ago, and that was the Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker movie. So yeah, that was the last one, and I decided to just hold off and wait till Godzilla vs. Kong was going to arrive in theaters, but of course that obviously got pushed back to May of this year, and then obviously the whole ordeal with that thing. So it's been obviously a little over a year for both of us since our last theater experiences.
I don't go to movies in theaters a whole lot. A lot of it's just because I got young kids and trying to work around that can be difficult. So anymore, when I go into a film, it's usually because it's something I really want to see, like it's a character or a type of film or whatever that I want to see. Like I went and saw Infinity War. What was it? That came out spring of 2018 or something like that.
2019. Nope. Yeah,
No,
2018.
Yeah, and I got burned by that. I didn't like it, and so I never went and saw Endgame. I never felt like I had to go see it because I'm like, Infinity War sucked, so I don't want to go see it. But I went and saw Meg in August of 2018. I'm like, it's a friggin' giant shark movie. Of course, I'm gonna go see it, and it's entertaining. It's not a film, but it's a fun film. And but yeah, it's like, and then I'm a huge Stallone fan, so I'm gonna any movie that he gets in theaters, I'm gonna go try and see. So
Mm-hmm. So, what are your sort of pros and cons as far as uh, Godzilla vs. Kong with it streaming versus theater wise?
Um, for me personally, because I saw Wonder Woman here the other day, one of the pros is that the sound quality is amazing. Like, if you have even a remotely halfway decent speaker system or whatever, you're gonna get some good sound quality. Excuse me. So, yeah, it's obvious unless you got or something like that. Um, it's not going to be 100% theater perfect, but it comes awfully close. Like I said, all we got is a sound bar with a subwoofer put, behind one of the pieces of furniture in our family room, and I was just really impressed with the quality of the sound. The picture quality was amazing, though, too. The fact that I could see it in the comfort of my own home without having to spend bajillions of dollars on snacks. I can go pee while pausing the film and not miss a darn thing. That's a positive. I had to do that a couple of times the other day with Wonder Woman. Um, their experience, though, is a great experience because, first and foremost, even though I don't like sitting through a ton of trailers, it is on some level kind of nice to see what other films may be coming up because there may be something that'll interest you. So there's that. Also, the sound quality is, it's just superb. You're not going to get anything better than that.
Yeah,
And
the
then you
only
just get to
thing.
see it with a lot of other people. You get to experience um, it's the joys, the sorrows, the laughter, and all that with other people. You kind of feed off of some of the other people's energy at times as well. And you're in a dark room with nothing more than this large screen, so you're immersed. You are 100% focused on what's in front of you. So there's that. But I could get used to this home theater viewing thing. I do.
For
I'm
me,
not complaining. I do
for
like it.
me, for me, I only just have the soundboard and subwoofer here, and then of course, luckily, I do have a 4K TV. It's basically right next to my computer here, but although the one con that I have is that with me living in an apartment and stuff, and then got people living upstairs. Although I don't have anyone below me since I'm living in a sub basement sort of part of the building here. Um, though I wouldn't be able to experience like the loud um, sort of sounds and stuff from a regular theater here. So that to me, that's sort of the downside for me, especially living in an apartment here. But as far as the whole pro thing, with uh, Godzilla vs. Kong being on stream, I mean, you get to see it, in the comfort of your own home without really having to spend money. Although you probably be spending the subscription
I pay it
monthly
through my
with.
cable bill.
Uh, for me, I am a Comcast, but I don't really have the sort of the luxury with it included. I only just have the internet portion subscription through Comcast or Xfinity, however you go by it. But if you subscribe to it monthly on HBO Max, I mean that's probably the only thing you'll be paying monthly is subscription part, which is $15 a month. So you only just really not paying just the one ticket for one certain movie through HBO Max. I mean, you're just paying for the entire thing, so you only probably paying pennies.
Well,
on this
and the
movie.
thing is, at least with HBO Max, with these these theatrical releases, you get 30 days to watch them as many times as you want. Would I like a 2 or 3 month thing? Sure. But you know what? I'm not going to argue with a 30-day thing because that still gives you plenty of time to get in there and to watch a thing as much as you want. So I'm not going to complain too much about that. That's still pretty cool to get it for 30 days and to watch it as
And
many times as you want.
and besides paying the subscription, the monthly subscription to HBO Max just to see this, I mean, it's I mean, not only you get this, but you get uh, films or TV shows to the other uh, like the whole Warner Media library that they will be added on to this whole streaming service for that matter. But for me, the downside to this one, besides messing out the whole theater experience, if you are one of those that sort of uh, not wanting to take the risk of going to theater, sort of missing out that whole theater experience, going with friends, and then obviously seeing it on this humongous screen and everything. Because I know with some of us uh, born maybe in the late '80s and or '90s, like some of us here, we haven't really experienced a Godzilla movie as much in the theaters, whereas some of the people that have lived for decades and stuff that have probably seen these uh, like movies in theaters and the like. Whereas us, I would say the first Godzilla movie that we've seen in theater was the '98 version, and then I guess a
Hmm.
couple or so years later it was the Godzilla 2000, and then we didn't really see another Godzilla movie in theaters up until the 2014 uh, iteration of Godzilla. So it's sort of nice to see uh, these uh, movies in theaters because obviously we're going to see these movies when they're released onto DVD and Blu-ray or 4K, that sort of aspect. Because I mean, you get many years of experiences of watching them on TV after them being released in theaters, and that's the sort of the thing that um, I would like to see is just the theater experience
Hmm.
of seeing this movie.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe when this whole thing is done, there may be a point in time in which some of these films will get a limited theatrical run. It's very possible.
hmm And then
Oh.
the other thing too is that we made, as far as a whole box office thing, it's probably like really effed up. This kind of the way
Yeah,
things
I
are
mean,
going. That's gonna be the one thing, especially as far as if Legendary is gonna move forward, expanding the whole MonsterVerse or what have you. And then I know one of the more recent news I heard about that Warner Brothers was offering uh, potentially offering Legendary $250 million just to keep Godzilla vs. Kong for the 30 days on HBO Max. I'm not sure if that is true or not, but that was one of the things I've heard. So, and I know the budget for it was under the 250 million for that matter. So it would at least make a budget. Or I would let me rephrase that. At least it would make a profit. There we go.
well, and
In that
that's the
sort of
thing. Like
regard.
all of these studios that have released films during this pandemic have lost money. The only way they could make the money would be through digital downloads and the purchase of the physical copies of the films once it got to that point. And my understanding, like, one of the first films to really come out during the pandemic was Trolls World Tour. And that movie,
did
I
pretty well.
think it was a rent initially. I think that's what it
Yeah,
was.
it was a rent, and along with that, it was Scoob as well.
Yeah,
Those two
and
were one of the first ones, and I know I've rented the Scoob movie and watched that one. But then I think, as far as the Trolls World Tour one, I think I just saw that. I think I might have seen that one on Hulu, or I think I might have rented it also on Amazon Prime.
but understanding, if I remember, was that Trolls World Tour during its theatrical run, quote unquote, actually did pretty darn well. People were really surprised as to the amount of money it made just from like a rent. And at the same time, I guess on some level, now that you think about it in hindsight, it makes perfect sense. You know, it was in the early days of the pandemic. A lot of scary stuff was going on. We didn't know a whole lot about what we were dealing with. And, you know, people were looking for some sort of entertainment. And, you know, here comes this family movie. And family movies always tend to do pretty well for the most part. And, you know, people were like, why not? You know, our kids are home from school because school got interrupted. And, you know, we just need something. And my understanding too is when it came time for the home release, it did well in both the download and the physical home video release as well. And in fact, physical release of films and shows did very well this year because of the pandemic. I, in my Amazon wish list, had a handful of films I had sitting in there for quite a while that I've been meaning to purchase. And at one point during the middle of the summer, you know, like a couple months into this pandemic, I'm like, you know what, I might want to go in and buy one or two of these. Come to find out, they were all sold out of those films at the time. I'm like, what the hell? And I started thinking, like, well, of course, it makes sense. We're in the middle of a pandemic. People are home. People want something to entertain themselves with. So, you know, home too, going back to Mill Creek and the Ultraman stuff, there was a period of time in which all the Ultraman stuff that had been released up to the point that this pandemic started, all of those were picked up and gone. They were sold out everywhere. So we're looking for stuff to watch and just to kind of get away from reality for a while. So, I mean, don't ever let anybody tell you physical media is dying. Is it taking a hit? Sure, yes. But to say it's dead or whatever, no, it's not true. Sure, the pandemic has helped it an awful lot, but it was still doing pretty decently even before the pandemic hit. Yes, the pandemic has sort of inflated those numbers and all that. But I think people during the course of this pandemic, you're going to see a lot of people, I think, value physical media and stuff a lot more than what they initially did.
And then I know there are certain streams, for example, Disney Plus, where they decided to release the film Mulan onto their stream, but not only sort of have it for free, they added it. I think it was an additional 15 or possibly $30 on top of your monthly subscription, so you have to pay that separately. And that's sort of one of the controversies that came about when that movie obviously came out. It's like, obviously you're paying a subscription fee, but then it's like, I'm not gonna pay the extra $30 just to see another movie, which overall it bombed after the controversies and stuff around that movie sort of came out.
Well, yeah,
in that regard. And it's
and
and then I think after that, some of the other streaming services, even Disney Plus themselves, with the recent release of Soul, which I actually watched last night. By the way, that one's pretty good. Um, they they're just like, we're not gonna do like this additional
It's dumb.
payment on top of your monthly subscription.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, if you're gonna do something that stupid, you only should charge the people who like actually watch it. Second of all, here's the thing, and this is sort of a side tangent for me. I think it's really, really dumb that all of a sudden now we are seeing so many of these networks with their own premium streaming services saying you want to watch your favorite programs or get this and that. Come and spend an extra $20 or whatever on our service and you get all this stuff. And the thing is that, okay, first and foremost, if you're a subscriber to either cable or satellite, you're paying a pretty hefty bill every month anyways. And you, in some cases, although like I said, in my case, I get HBO Max as part of my regular service, so it's not costing me any extra for that, thank God. But for maybe someone who doesn't have that sort of service, they're paying an extra $15 a month for something like that. Or Disney Plus, I think, is costing like $17 a month.
Unless if you have Hulu and like live TV through there, you get a discount on Disney Plus, which would be $8.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I just think it's so dumb because you're going to get to a point where people, I think, are going to be paying just about as much, if not more, for these premium services than they will their cable and satellite bills. And then on top of that, too, there are different ways to try to obtain some of them. Like HBO Max, for example, my understanding is I don't think you can get it through the TV unless you have some sort of cable or satellite provider that is carrying it. Otherwise, you can only get it through your computers and tablets and that sort of stuff.
Well, and then unless if you have a smart TV like I do, because they've got certain apps to access these, or unless if you have a Roku or was it Chromecast or the Amazon Fire Stick.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like let's say you got Chromecast, are you going to be able to get something like, what is it, Discovery Plus through there? Are you going to get some of these other premium networks through something like that? Oh no, you got to go buy this device to get your Discovery Plus and your Cuckoo Kachoo Premium over here. Like, it just, and those aren't cheap either. Like, you typically have to provide some baseline price for that sort of thing too. And this is going to be the end of my tangent. I think it's dumb. I think it's nickel and diamond, everybody. These networks are getting very greedy, especially Disney. I mean, I love Disney. They do, by and large, make some pretty good, memorable programming and all that. Quite a number of their films and shorts over the years. They even have a number of shows that my kids, even right now, love to watch. But I hate the fact that they virtually own like 50 to 60% of the cinema, more or less, right now. I mean, I know that's sort of an exaggeration, but it's not that far off. But it boggles my mind because we have these companies that are too big. They, for example, Disney should not have been allowed to buy 20th Century Fox. I think, to me, it was crossing the line when they bought Lucasfilm and then the Marvel studios. I thought right there that was trust laws left and right. And now they got 20th Century Fox and all that. I'm just like, holy shit. Like, now they own Predator and Aliens and Die Hard and all that stuff and Home Alone now. I'm just like, are you kidding me? And it's just and some of that stuff you can't get on other services. Like, you could occasionally get some Disney stuff via Netflix. Well, when Disney Plus came along, they're like, nope, do that. And again, it's like, I don't want to spend $17 just to get a handful of stuff. And
Well, then with as you mentioned earlier, with a bunch of these networks, potentially with this whole streaming wars thing going on, and I've noticed this too a while back, maybe a year or so ago, that it just feels like I'm literally paying a bit too much for some of these whole streaming services to where it's like I haven't gone back to Netflix, and then I've unsubscribed to was it Crunchyroll, and I sort of was on Verve, which is uh, built by Crunchyroll with a better UI experience and everything, and plus I can actually watch some of the animes and stuff on Verve for free, even on Crunchyroll for free, along with commercials and stuff. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna unsubscribe to this. I can still watch this stuff for free with commercials and everything. It's gotten to the point as of right now. The only thing I have a subscription to is Disney Plus, which I get a discount through my Hulu, which I get live TV through, and that subscription thing I'm gonna unsubscribe here within the next month or so after college football or Super Bowl come around, and that's gonna be it for me for the next several months. So I don't particularly spend a whole lot on subscriptions anymore like I did in the past.
well, yeah, like Don Tuween says here, there will always be a need for physical media. I am not crazy about subscribing to multiple streams just to watch a few movies. Same here. I mean, here's the thing, and this is going to be the last thing I'm going to say about these streaming services, these premium streaming services. You know, people for many years have been complaining with both cable and satellite. You're paying all this money for channels that you don't watch, right? Premium services you're getting, people are going to quickly, if they haven't figured it out already, they're going to soon enough find out that I am paying this much money for a service in which I may only watch one or two shows or maybe a couple movies, and by and large, I don't really touch much at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
That
then
whole cable satellite sort of discussion with these premium network services.
yeah, and like anymore, I just only subscribe to Hulu, which I think after this I'm probably going to move over to Fubo several months down the road, sometime next year, simply because of the pricing and everything. But there are other apps where I just need a sort of the TV provider, which Hulu, Fubo, was it Sling, and some of these other internet TV providers are part of. So you can at least just sign up with just as long as you're a provider from those services, as far as like the ESPN app, the Fox Sports app, and I think a couple others where you just need your login to these TV providers, um, along with internet TV, and you can just access things that way. And you don't even have to really pay anything except for your internet subscription to like Fubo or Hulu or YouTube TV or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think because of the pandemic and because this stuff is still so relatively new, um, I think few people have seen what we are talking about at this point. But I think soon enough, you're going to see to say, I'm spending this money and I'm only watching one thing or what. And for some people, that may be fine. Like, I know The Mandalorian's really popular on Disney Plus. For some
That's one
people,
thing why.
just to spend $17 to watch that is worth it. I mean, okay, that's fine. You know, if that's what you want to do with your money, then so be it. But
At least that's it's worth the $8 for me, at least, just for the Mandalorian, because I've been watching that, and that's pretty good. As well as some of the other ones I've seen, Onward, which that one also came out
we got that on Blu-ray.
on Disney Plus, because that was supposed to come out this year in theaters, and they put that on Disney Plus. And that one's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But yeah, other than that, it's gotten to the point after Netflix started doing the streaming thing several years ago, and now all the networks are doing their own thing. It's just gotten to the point where it's just getting too convoluted and
There's
getting
going to
way
be a
too
day of reckoning.
divisive.
It's going to be a number of years. It's going to be 5-10 years down the road when people are, like I said, enough people are going to be like, why am I spending all this money for little content? And the fact that a lot of people are going to be screaming, I want this content, I want that content, but I would have to pay an extra 15 or so dollars to get it, and I don't want to do that. You used to be on cable or satellite. Why I do that? But let's get back to kaiju.
Well, yeah, it's like I know as far as pros and cons, streaming versus theater wise, as far as the cons for Godzilla vs. Kong here, is that what's going to be the outcome after this movie is released? Since now that with the whole box office thing is being screwed up, because I know the box office thing sort of determines whether the movie's going to be good or bad, and if there's going to be a sequel to this. So now, with the whole situation here, is there potentially going to be an expanding MonsterVerse now with the whole pandemic thing, and then now with Godzilla vs. Kong going on to streaming as well as going into theaters? Is there going to be a MonsterVerse after this?
Well, the thing is that every studio is going through something like this. I mean, I don't think that will be the first time Warner Brothers gone through something like that during the pandemic. All these other studios are, if they haven't already faced it, they will be facing it soon. And they understand that, look, the whole money aspect, we're going to take a hit on this. Many of these studios have acknowledged that. I mean, they're already saying, look, we will lose money on these, but we're not going to just set these things on a shelf. You got to try to get these things out at some point. And I think
as far as after, if there's
right, but my point is that because of that, I think determine expansions or continuations will be I think it'll be fan response to a lot of things more than anything else. It'll be fan response, digital downloads when that becomes available, and also physical media purchases too, your Blu-rays, your DVDs, and all that stuff when that happens. And I just think too, just sort of speculation on the studios themselves. Thinking, hey, we got this, license here. We got these properties. Do we think we can milk a little bit more out of these or not? My thing is that when it comes to the MonsterVerse specifically, is that I don't think we're going to see a continuation of it. Because I think this Godzilla vs. Kong initially, even before this pandemic came in, was supposed to be the final chapter in this 2014 through now storyline, and that's supposed to be that. I could be wrong about that. Maybe they will change their mind on that, perhaps, if this thing at least, does okay in terms of digital downloads, Blu-ray sales, and is given a bunch of thumbs up by the fans. They may do a continuation. My understanding would be if they continue a sort of a MonsterVerse, it's going to be sort of a reset button. That if we do see anything, it's going to be 3 to 5 years after this film. But even if they do decide to continue this storyline in some fashion, my theory is that it still will at least 3 years before we even see a sequel. Part of that is going to be because, again, monsters are a niche sort of group. You can bring in general audience up to a point, but by and large, you're only going to attract so many, people coming in to see these films. So there's that. Two, um, with the pandemic and everything, I think some studios with some projects, potential projects, anyways, may want to just wait and let things settle down on that front before maybe even considering moving forward on expanding anything. Because, like I said, my understanding was Godzilla vs. Kong was going to be the door closing shut on this whole thing, that this was it. And like I said, money talks, and that can always change. But regardless, even if this thing does really well and is well received, even by both fans and critics at 100%, at the bare minimum, we're looking at 3 years before we may see anything at all relating to the MonsterVerse, whether it's a continuation or a whole new resetting of this.
Yeah, for me, in my opinion, I think there could have been potentially being an expansion after Godzilla vs. Kong, but ever since with the whole pandemic thing came into play earlier this year, I think it really has obviously dampened the whole process of how that they were going to move forward after Godzilla vs. Kong and everything. And yeah, sort of like you, I think with everything that has currently gone into play, I think it's probably just has set back the whole MonsterVerse at least a few years, if not maybe 5 years at best.
Well, and then Toho was wanting to do their own sort of MCU type of deal as well. And they may take the license away. I don't know what the licensing is for Legendary and Warner Brothers for Godzilla. If it expires after this film, then it's up to Toho as to whether or not they or what have you. I mean, there's a bunch of things we don't exactly know yet.
I'm guessing that they might have had some talks too with that before the pandemic hit, and then once that did, they probably sort of maybe put it on pause, or like, we'll just have to wait and see how everything pans out after everything sort of starts to go back to normal. And then two, with the contract, we don't even know the specifics of how long Legendary and or Warner Brothers has the licenses to only Godzilla and then some of these monsters.
And here's the thing. Last I knew, I'm not even entirely sure when Toho was even looking to start releasing / producing their own set of MonsterVerse films. And with that being said, if they're wanting to do their own series or franchise, they're not going to want to compete with a big blockbuster Hollywood budget film that is of the same title character anyways. They're not going to want to do that, because then their film is going to be looked upon as less than, and is not going to put as many butts in the seats or what have you as this bigger Hollywood thing that has bigger actors, bigger stars, larger promotional budget, etc. I mean, you name it, Hollywood's going to have the advantage over them. And it wouldn't matter regardless of whether the movie was well received or not. But they're not going to want to go toe-to-toe a Hollywood version of their own property, because it's going to make their own thing look less than and just not do as well financially. And on top of that, too, it's going to saturate the market, and we've seen this numerous times, just even in the last 30 or so years. How many properties have come out in film form, saturated the market, and then that was it. We didn't see anything of some of these properties again for a long time, because we just kept seeing year after year, even every couple of years or so, of films coming out, and just people eventually getting tired of them. We have a comment here. Getting back to kaiju, Monster Hunter was a Toho co-production. Do you think that Toho will continue doing this? And once the Legendary series is over, yeah, absolutely. Just like we were talking about, they had for a while have had plans to do their own sort of MCU type of deal with kaiju. I don't think a whole lot of details are out yet, and I don't know if that's just because Toho themselves isn't exactly sure how they're going to do it. Either that or they're keeping quite a bit of stuff secret. But my understanding is it's going to be a solo film here and there, and then maybe a budding up film with kaiju as well periodically, and then sort of a coming together of an Avengers type of story with all the kaiju involved. But yeah, Toho is planning on doing that. It's just a question of when and how are they going to do that.
Yeah, and as far as Monster Hunter, I know I've only just seen the trailers and everything, and I think it'd be interesting to take a look at once that movie comes out. And as far as as far as continuing, if they're gonna do Monster Hunter, if that's one of your questions, we'll just have to wait and see. It all just comes down to as far as the eyeballs and if there's any positive reviews going about uh, Monster Hunter and everything too. So it's just a wait and see. And then
Yeah.
obviously we might, I, we'll probably do some sort of review on it on a particular episode too. We'll have to discuss about it if we're going to do that or not. But yeah, it's just depends on the reviews and the eyeballs and everything.
Yeah, I would love to see Monster Hunter. I've never played any of the games, although I do have one of them. I think it's Monster Hunter Stories, I think is what I got on
Yeah,
3DS.
and I know I've heard about it, but I've never played any of the games. I think wasn't there some kind of manga or anime? I'm not too entirely sure. So
I'm not sure. It always
let me
seemed like
check it.
a fairly interesting story, but I just have never had the time to go seek it out and to go it was about. But first of all, I'm a huge Mia Jovovich fan. Um, I think she's pretty hot, but and I also think she's a good actress. But not only that, I mean, I look at bits of film that I've seen via trailers and stuff. It's like seems like it'd be something I'd be interested in. So
So yeah, apparently there is an anime. It's called Monster Hunter Stories Right On, and then there's manga slash comics, uh, you know, such as Monster Hunter Orage. That's done by Kodansha and Capcom back in 2008, and then of course the card games as well, and then some animated specials, and then of course the movie as
mhm.
well. So yeah, there's quite a bit of mediums based on Monster Hunter here.
Yeah. Did you have anything else to add, or did we want to move on to our next topic here?
Yeah, obviously, as far as the whole outcome with Godzilla vs. Kong coming on to streaming and theater wise, I think this time around is not with everything that's been going on currently. I think box office numbers isn't gonna really matter as much anymore. And then, of course, with Toho's, as they call it, the World of Godzilla. I think that's the official title of it. I yeah, I just don't really know the whole future of MonsterVerse at this point in time, especially with Toho wanting to do their own cinematic universe of all the kaiju that they have in their arsenal. So I probably would have to say that this could possibly be the final uh, MonsterVerse film that they've got for the time being.
For a while, anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, with that, I want to give my overall thoughts and review of Neo Ultra Q. This is a 12-episode series. It had originally debuted in 2006, and it had originally come out here on Blu-ray like back in August, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think I might have seen that a while back, up
And
until the whole Mill Creek Entertainment.
yeah, and I had been wanting to watch it because I'm like, look, it's 12 episodes. I don't have a ton of time to like go through long series unless I'm willing to take the time to go through those long series. But I needed like a little buffer, and I thought, you know what, the 12 episode series is something that's not going to take me long. It'll take me like 2 days to get through, and so I watched it. And here is sort of my overall thoughts. Neo Ultra Q. Excuse me. I am a fan of the original 1964 Ultra Q series produced by Subaraya Productions. It more or less was the Twilight Zone meets the Outer Limits with a little X-Files sprinkled in. Excuse me. Dog, it just seems like I got a burp or something. It featured kaiju, aliens, ghosts, beings from alternate dimensions, and much more. When I was ready to start my journey into Neo Ultra Q, a show that dubbed itself as the second season to the original, I was excited and hoped to have some continuation of what took place with the original. In this incredibly short 12-episode series, I was surprised that, while in some ways it did continue some of the foundational aspects of Ultra Q, it really was its own series. Kaiju don't exist in this particular universe. Sure, we hear the word kaiju used throughout, but according to the subtitles, the word means ogre in the context of this show. That makes sense given that most of the creatures we see are ogre-ish in appearance. We do see some decent-sized gastropods later in the series, a couple of aliens, an evil deity, and some robots. Neo Ultra Q sets itself apart from its predecessor by bringing in commentaries on the human condition and society. Philosophical in its storytelling, while Ultra Q was a bit more about telling a fun story, which there is nothing wrong with that. The series tends to be fairly deep in its commentary and went head-on with some challenging topics to tackle. Some of the topics include death, the meaning of freedom, what makes someone something beautiful, why democracy is the best form of government, environmentalism, mankind's ignorance, love, and much more. These topics are covered multiple times, but usually in smaller form in other episodes that want to tackle a different topic. The stories can get heavy at times. The first 2 episodes of the series deal with death the most, and I found myself shedding a few tears after one very heartfelt moment in the second episode. Another very touching episode comes near the series' conclusion, titled Falmagon and Michiru. Michiru had an accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. She can no longer be with her track and field team, and she believes her physical handicap makes her no longer attractive to a guy she has always wanted to hook up with on the team. Falmagon is this junkyard ogre with a childish, innocent voice. He and Michiru have been pals for a while, and Falmagon loves her like a really close friend. He will do anything for her despite her self-pity raising her temper and taking that anger out on him occasionally. It is discovered that he has developed an ability to put things back together the way they once were after being broken. Let's scroll down here. Falmagon on several occasions tells Michiru he wants to tell her he wants to see her smile again. One evening in the junkyard, Falmagon decides to heal Michiru's legs. However, because repairing broken bones takes more power to accomplish than, say, putting a glass bottle back together, Falmagon has to summon all of his energies to heal Michiru. Falmagon sacrificing himself so Michiru can walk again. The following morning, Michiru is shocked to discover she can walk again. To tell Falmagon, but one of the series' main characters, Professor Haibara, tells her she will no longer see him. Understand that Falmagon was behind her ability to walk again and sobs uncontrollably. It's an incredibly touching story of love and self-sacrifice, and the Falmagon character is one the audience will immediately fall in love with. It is a tearjerker for sure. Neo Ultra Q has three main characters: Professor Haibara, Emiko Watarase, and Shoei Shiroyama. Psychologist. Emiko is a journalist, and Shoei owns a bar. And also in similar fashion to Jun, Yuriko, and Ippei from Ultra Q, these characters aren't always front and center in the episodes. In fact, Emiko, Haibara, and Shoei play an even more subdued role in Neo Ultra Q than did Jun, Yuriko, and Ippei. More times than not, all three or even one or two of them are supporting characters in a story. There are definitely a few episodes where we barely get to see them at all. As mentioned earlier, the series ran for 12 episodes in 2006. There are only 12 episodes produced I could not find an answer to, nor could I figure out why the show was canceled after 12 episodes, or if the original intent was to produce just those 12 episodes. Very little information is available in English about the show. Neo Ultra Q is in some ways. Let me start that again. In conclusion, Neo Ultra Q in some ways continues the trends set by Ultra Q, but with its own take on the material as well. It definitely is more philosophical than its predecessor and is also more emotional. There aren't any kaiju in the series, at least not the kind so many of us associate with when we hear the word kaiju. While I do believe those who dislike the anime Godzilla trilogy may have disliked the series because the anime trilogy was heavy on the philosophy as well, I would seriously implore people to give this series a look. It's only 12 episodes, so little of your time will be taken. I also believe that some people who may be on the fence about the series may actually enjoy it should they give it a try. It's an emotional, heartfelt series that does push certain agendas in particular directions, but it does so with the theme of love and community as the base theme of every story. I thoroughly enjoyed this series and highly recommend it. I also hope all of you take the opportunity to check it out for yourselves if you haven't already done so.
Yeah, as far as when it comes to the amount of episodes that they do, like anime and TV shows over in Japan, they're usually around 12 to 13. So that's usually the normal number right there. So
Yeah, George Guzman wrote, I would love to see Toho teaming up with another production company and do a solo Rodan film. I feel that Rodan has been shortchanged in these last couple of features. Yeah, I mean, I would argue a lot of kaiju has been shortchanged. Anybody who knows the story behind GMK knows that Shusuke Kaneko wanted Godzilla, Barugon, Anguirus, and Varan in there, and it's like, well, no, those guys are not as popular, so we're going to throw in Dora and Mothra. We'll keep Barugon, but we'll get rid of Varan and Anguirus. But
yeah, it's just it's all about the moolah in the end.
yeah, but anyway, yeah, Neo Ultra Q was something I was really excited about, and I think it really, with the personal hype I gave it, I think it lived up to that.
So is it? Does it sort of? I know I haven't really seen this new Ultra Q TV show yet. As far as sort of the whole thing, does it sort of kind of go along the lines of like the original one did, or is it sort of doing its own thing in a way?
In it's like the original in that it deals with some unique not really even supernatural, because that one had some ghosts and stuff periodically. This one doesn't. This one is a world in which weird things happen, but at the same time, ogres, or kaiju as they're called here, do exist and occasionally live among people. Whereas that wasn't the case before.
And they're not really like giant monsters in this sort of set. They're just more like sort of maybe taller or the same height as
There
humans.
are some, like the largest. There is an alien being that comes in for one episode towards the end, and I think we only see them talk through their spacecraft, I think. But in terms of an ogre, the largest one I think we see is probably anywhere between 15 and 20 feet tall. So it's not overly huge. Um, yeah, it's a different world. It's a world where ogres live among people. Kaiju, as we know them, don't really exist. There are the occasional aliens. You have three main characters, but like I said, similar to Ultra Q, they aren't always the center of a story. They may just barely show up, if at all. You may even get one or two of the characters showing up periodically in a show. But by and large, it's sort of its own thing. There's no continuity between the episodes. Each episode is its own story, its own deal. But
Sort of doing like the whole like kind of the Showa era versions where it's just basically all contained in one episode.
Small ways it's similar to Ultra Q, but it's more or less its own thing as well. Like it has sort of the loose foundation of the original, but by and large, it's its own thing.
But it seems like when you're reading your synopsis or review there, it seems like there's at least a couple little things that is consistent throughout the entire show.
Well, yeah,
as like the one person has a like is in love with this one particular person in ways.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a very philosophical series. If you've ever seen Twilight Zone or the original, or even the original Outer Limits, you will realize that a lot of those episodes were commentaries on different things within society, but told through the lens of science fiction. In many ways, this is like that. The original Ultra Q was sort of like that too, but I would argue Neo Ultra Q on that. Neo Ultra Q, I would argue, definitely tries to commentate on various aspects about the human condition and life on this world, and it gets very heavy at times, it's philosophical. At times, it gets a little flowery with itself, which for me is fine. I don't mind that stuff as long as it's done well, and I think it is done well here. I think it's genius. I think out of everything tokusatsu I have ever seen, going back, like 28 years now, and I've seen some really good stuff with some good stories, I would argue Neo Ultra Q at this point, being a fan, is probably the best philosophically well-written material that sort of commentates on etc. And kind of like I said, near the end of my review there, the base themes of really every episode involves one, if not both things. Community as sort of the base. And like I said, it gets very philosophical. They are trying to sell you certain ideas and either tell you something's wrong that needs to be fixed, or tell you one thing is better than another, that sort of thing. I think it is a very well done series. It's a darn shame that there weren't more episodes, because I think they could have gone on longer and commentate on more things. But I think for what they did, it's almost hate to throw the G word around because sometimes that's thrown around very loosely, but I'm just going to say it because I think it's true. I think it's genius. I think I love the original Ultra Q. The original Ultra Q is a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, I love that series an awful lot. But I think Neo Ultra Q is a better written series because it makes you think, it makes you feel, and I think some, not always, because sometimes there are movies and shows that are written to make you think and to feel, but I think sometimes they don't make it fun or enjoyable at points. This makes it fun and enjoyable. I mean, sure, like I said, I shed a few tears at times during the course of the series, and I'm not making that up. I did. I mean, there are some really heartfelt stories being told here, but it's not done in a way that sort of makes you feel awful, or anything like that. It makes you think, and it sort of forces you to try to like change any sort of shortcomings within yourself where possible.
Yeah. And I know that you're huge fans of these particular shows like Twilight Zone, the two iterations of it, Outer Limits, and basically you know what I'm talking about. As far as if you uh, maybe rank all of them in sort of aspect, where would you place this particular TV show amongst all of these?
I would put it third, because Twilight Zone came first, and I think it still did everything the best.
Which one, the
Uh,
first or the second
oh,
version?
the first. I'm not touching the '80s stuff, or even the new stuff. There have been like four iterations of, but the original series. Um, then the Outer Limits. The Outer Limits involved similar commentaries in some respects, but also different commentaries. But they did things in much more of a straight up science fiction horror way, where there were actual like aliens or mutations or creatures or monsters or what have you involved. I would place that second. Neo Ultra Q I would place third, mainly because of two things. One thing is there are only 12 episodes, so it doesn't have the dearth of a library that the other two have. Not to mention it comes decades after the other two shows came along. So in a roundabout way, it is sort of on some level mirroring what those two shows did. But even then, I would easily watch this again many, many times because it does things in its own unique way. I mean, it's Japan, it's pop culture. You deal with their own form of monsters, you deal with their own form of deities and demons, and the stuff that they believe in and have just been a part of their pop culture for years. So. Yeah, I mean, I still would highly recommend it. But if I had to rate these, if you told me here are three shows, the original Twilight Zone, the original Outer Limits, and Neo Ultra Q, you you can only pick one, and that's the one you're stuck with for the rest of your life. Which one would you pick? For me, it's hands down the original Twilight Zone for me, anyways.
Hmm. And then, as far as a rating out of 10, did you give a rating?
I didn't know, but I would rate it a 10 easily. It's a 10. I think people have to check this out. It's different than what you're going to find, and I think on some level, people who may not be familiar with either Ultra Q or just are not willing to maybe take a chance on this, I'm almost afraid people are just going to pass this one up and just sort of shrug their shoulders and just kind of be like, this isn't worth it. So
Sort of that way.
I would really implore people to do it. Was there not an episode titled "It Came from the Year 2020"? Talk about prophetic. In what? In Neo Ultra Q? Um, I don't. My understanding, I didn't see anything like that in Neo Ultra Q or the original Twilight Zone or the original
Let's see here.
here. I don't want. It just is giving me news stories here. That's not
Let's
what I
see.
want.
List of episodes. I'm looking at Wikipedia here. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything of the sort.
I'm not seeing anything about it came from the year 2020 on anything. I even wrote it came from the year 2020 episode. Because I just got done recently going through the original Twilight Zone for a fourth time. There was no episode titled that. I saw the original one last year. There was nothing that title, and I know there was nothing like that here with a Neo Ultra Q. So I guess I'm not sure what show you are referring to here. You know more about that than I do. You could educate me here.
But yeah, unless if there's anything else you want to talk about here, I can possibly move on to my thing here and the last bit of thing on my list I've got.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so the one thing I wanted to discuss about is also in the realm the whole the Super Riot Productions here, and this is sort of my thoughts on the latest addition to the Ultraman franchise. And that's Ultraman Z, and it just concluded its final episode here with sort of the whole records of restorage here the other day, basically right on Christmas. Here, Ultraman Z, and I've for the past several weeks I've been watching this here on YouTube, and as far as my thoughts on it, I really dig the story that they uh, did this time around compared to the last several years since I've got back into seeing the more recent stuff of Ultraman, starting with Ultraman X. Uh, Obviously, I haven't seen the last two, which were Ultraman RB and Ultraman Taiga, because we didn't have any distributor. Because I know the last the
We
few
got
years,
RB now on home Blu-ray.
right? But was it Crunchyroll? They previously streamed these shows from Ultraman X, and then you had Ultraman Orb, and then Ultraman Geed or Geed, how you pronounced it. And then after that, they just sort of stopped streaming. So I never saw the last two. But finally, Super Riot, the official YouTube channel of theirs, started streaming Ultraman Z. So I've been watching this show, and the whole story of it, it's it sort of goes back to like the sort of the um, original formula a little bit, with where you got this whole special force or special unit um, for Ultraman. However, there's just a little bit of twist here and there, and you had this parasitic uh, alien called Celebro who's been possessing certain beings. Even the head of this whole storage special unit that helps defeat the monsters and stuff through like these robots, and they build these robots like Svenger, and then later on, uh, was it Wyndham and this version of King Joe, and this Celebro alien parasite gets possesses the head, and it just goes down from there, and like they build this Ultroid Zero, which is a robotic version of Ultraman, and probably gonna get into spoilers here, so if you don't want to see this, back out now. So, but yeah, they make this D4 ray, which is like this power ray, which sends these monsters into a different universe, so to speak. And basically, this Ultroid Zero is a predecessor to a ultimate weapon that this parasite alien uh, wants to, take over the world or destroy the world and everything. It's a really really good show and everything. And in the was it the characters you got was it Koshu Hirano, who plays as the main protagonist, Haruki Natsukawa, who turns into Ultraman Z, and you got Takaya Oyagi, who returns as Jugless Juggler from Ultraman Geed or Geed there, or also as Captain Shota Hibikura, and then you got Rima Matsuda, who portrays as Yoko Nakashima, who's sort of like the love interest to Haruki. But yeah, it's a really really good show. It's oh man, and the visual effects, I think they've gotten a heck of a lot better in the last few years since I've gotten back into the more recent Ultraman TV shows. Story is so much better this time as I've sort of gone through it. Here, the cast, I think the casting of Ultraman Z, I think they fit perfectly well with the kind of show that they were going for Ultraman Z. And yeah, it's and then the monsters that they have in this one. Of course, they sort of recycle some of the previous ones that you usually see from previous Ultraman shows, or the Showa versions of the Ultraman franchise. It's a really good one. If you haven't seen Ultraman Z, I would say do so now. It's when it comes to the YouTube channel for Super Ride Productions, it seems like that they have these episodes up for a certain amount of time and then they take them off. So
Well, I missed out.
I would at least say they do have the last the last few episodes up. So I would at least maybe try to take a look at them before that they were taken down. Um, but yeah, it's just a really good episode, and they've got the two boxes coming out. The first box coming out next month, and then I think the next one, box two, I think is coming out either February or March, that sort of speak. I'm not sure if they're going to have subtitles of that regard, but yeah, it's all in all, Ultraman Z is by far of the more recent Ultraman TV shows. This one is probably the best one I've seen so far, and basically story wise, I think is what makes it the best one here. And my verdict for this one is also a 10 out of 10 from what I've seen.
So Don Toween was saying that the episode he was referring to came from Ultra Q. So you can tell I haven't seen Ultra Q in a while. The last time I went through that series was early 2016. So the episode you're referring to is called Challenge from the Year 2020. And here, Jason, I'm sending you a link. There's this in there. I forget the name of it, but there's a picture of it on that image link there. The name escapes me. I wouldn't recognize it. But yeah, now that I see pictures of it, I have vague memories of that particular episode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember this one here.
What's the kaiju?
Oh,
It showed up in I think the last episode of Ultraman.
I know that he's part of the Ultraman anime series. I know the face. Um, Let me take a look. See here.
Ultra Q. Let me do a quick search. Challenge from the year 2020. Monster. Come on.
Let's see here.
What's the name of this thing? Kimur Man? Kimur Man from Ultra Q. I think that's what it's called for that.
I guess.
Or the Vanishing Monster Haruki.
Haruki, yeah, I think so.
Okay. Phantom Kimur. Yeah, I've seen Kimur Man and Haruki. Big memories of this now, because I mean, my gosh, it's been nearly 5 years since I've been through that series, and I've been wanting to go through it again. I've been with a few other things.
But yeah, so with basically Ultraman Z coming to a close on Christmas Day here, but they're gonna have a follow-up kind of mini series called Ultraman Chronicles Z: Heroes Odyssey, and this is also not only gonna show some of the continuation of Ultraman Z, but it's also going to be commemorating the 25th anniversary of Ultraman Tiga. So I think from what I've seen on some of the promos for this one, that they're going to possibly be showing some of the Ultraman Tiga specials that were made back in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Ultraman Z from people on Facebook. Once in a while, I'll see some of my friends post their thoughts on the latest episode when it's released. But yeah, I have not caught any of the shows, unfortunately. And if Subaru has taken them down after a short bit, that's disappointing, because now I'm not going to get a chance to go through the whole thing until there's any sort of potential home video release down the road.
Mm-hmm. And so they're gonna, for Ultraman Chronicles Z, this is going to be airing obviously not only on Japanese televisions but on the YouTube channel starting January 9th. So if you want to continue on watching this, you'll also get a chance early next month. So with that, that's basically it on my end.
Yeah, I thought about diving into one other thing. One of the things I originally had in mind turned out to take a lot more time to do research than I had initially thought. And then on top of that too, because I didn't write down some of the main themes or premises that I wanted, I sort of forgot some of it by the time I was ready to sit down and do any sort of research on it. And then I thought about coming in and doing a thing that I can do sort of off the top of my head without too much, research, really, because it comes from the heart, man. It comes from the heart. But I'm just going to touch upon it. I'm not going to do a big spiel or anything like that. But I just wanted to touch upon something that has been sort of also on my mind over the last odd number of weeks. And it took me back to August, one of a post from August Ragoni's blog from, gosh, I don't know, like 8, 9, 10 or so years ago, whenever he wrote it. And that is, why is it that so many of us love the kaiju genre, tokusatsu stuff, and all that. And I guess too, this can go into, why do we love even American, like monster films or whatever. Do I have one in reach here? I do. Like something, like Dinosaurus or something like that. Why do some of us just get so attracted to sorts of things? And I guess for a lot of people, they scratch their heads and are like, why do you like the rubber suited creatures out of Japan? Those things are so cheesy and it looks so stupid. And I tell them, first of all, you've never seen a damn thing, because if you did, you probably would get a little bit of an understanding of why we enjoy it. But anyways, Ragoni had said that one of the reasons why so many of us these films and these shows, this genre, is because of their inherent Japanese-ness. In other words, he was talking about a particular style and an approach, these films and these shows. And in other words, too, it's the Japan's own brand of culture and pop culture, obviously being put into these movies and these shows, just like here in America. Any movie and show that is being made, American cultural and pop cultural values and what have you are inserted into those products. Definitely is a huge part of it. Also, one of the things is that obviously a lot of us are huge fans of dinosaurs. Some of our first love, mine for sure, was dinosaurs when I was a kid. Seeing, as a child, when you see a dinosaur on a TV screen or at a theater, especially if it's a live action film, it just makes it that much more exciting. You see it come to life, so to speak, and get destroyed. And to me, I don't take as much joy, I guess, as seeing buildings being destroyed like I did when I was a kid. That just must be something that is very kid-like, I guess. I can't really explain that part, but I remember as a kid, it's like, I want to see buildings crumble. I want to see them fall. And now it's just like, yeah, I mean, I want to see that, but it's not like it doesn't make or break a film for me like it once would. But too, that especially for us older fans, I'm in my mid-30s here, and I think part of the reason why people like myself and those who are a little bit younger than I am and those who are older than I am, outside of the fact that, yeah, the inherent Japanese-ness, the fact that many of us have a basis of loving dinosaurs when we were kids too, and seeing something like that, especially in a live action show or film, is pretty fun and unique, especially obviously when you see it as a kid. I think, especially as we become older, one of the things that keeps us attached to not just the tokusatsu genre and the kaiju sub-genre, and even Western-made films like Dinosaurus, just all of those things that keep us attached to these things. But I would argue nostalgia, sentimental value as well. I remember clear as day, very late in 2011, when I was playing Godzilla Double Smash on my DS, that all of a sudden I had sort of this resurgence again in my fandom. I became so interested in Godzilla and kaiju again, because it got to a point there for a number of years. I was into Godzilla. I would watch maybe a couple movies a year, but I wasn't really watching them like I was. Our podcast had been going on a little bit for a while, then it went on this long hiatus. And I really wasn't even into kaiju as much then as I thought I was. And I was in college. I was, focused on trying to get a degree, and then, I was big into sports, following sports an awful lot, and all that too. Just, more interested in the day-to-day things that were going on. Realized when I was playing Double Smash that one night, it was basically around New Year's Eve of 2011. I'm like, man, like, this is really a lot of fun, Godzilla and all that. I got to start watching these movies again. And that's what started my whole fan resurgence thing. And by early 2012, I started really getting heavy into kaiju genre again. I think I've talked about this before periodically on this podcast over the last like 8 years, where there were some movies where kid or a teenager growing up were not very good. I actually found myself enjoying some of those types of films, like Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster. I remember when I first saw that, and even for a number of years afterwards, I thought that movie was overhyped and really not all that great. Now I look at it, I'm like, okay, the quality of it is down, but that's because that was like the third Honda kaiju film he released within 1964. So it was a rush job, and it shows in many respects. But it's a fun film. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Mothra versus Godzilla's a superior film in every way to that one. Or yeah, it's there. But excuse me, but Ghidra's a lot of fun, despite some of the obvious shortcomings of that particular film. Megaguirus was another film that I never was too high on either, and I found myself enjoying it more. I don't think I'm not in love with it, but I think it's a rather fun film. I think it's meaning than I used to think it was. And I remember sitting down one evening, this was 2012. I was doing an internship this one particular evening. I think it was a Friday evening, and I was working late. And it's an unpaid internship. Those are always fun. And I came home. It was a long day. I was tired. And a number of years of being in college and focusing on getting my degree and following sports and just following regular day-to-day reality stuff, I realized I was gradually much fun with life as I was. And certain things in general were making me more depressed and all that. And I realized as I had been at that point for about 5 months getting into kaiju films. Kaiju films me to escape into a different realm, into a different reality for a while. Me an awful lot of simpler times when I was a young kid or a teenager, with little to no responsibilities at all. Remembering the things that made me happy, like the goofy little things. You guys occasionally, if you have seen my son over the last 9 months when we've done commentaries or maybe even general discussions of certain films, you see how easily excited he gets at various things. Back in May when we did a Shin Godzilla commentary, Jason and I tore that film apart, and you heard him and saw him in the background going, huh? Good. Like you heard him and saw him defending that film, and he's a child. He doesn't really understand some of the sophistications of storytelling and some of the nuances and that sort of thing. And we all were like that. And a movie podcast I listened to were these hosts a couple months ago were talking about how there were some films that they loved as a kid but can't stand now as an adult because of the storytelling techniques within those films. They just sometimes don't age well as you age. Mm-hmm. Do. And for me, and I do believe a lot of fans that are around my age, a little bit younger and older, being able to escape reality for a while, being able to that sentimental period in our lives as kids, when a vast majority of us were exposed to this material, and to have that wave of nostalgia again, to sort of relive it in some small way. I think reason why we love these films so much. We love them because of the characters. We love them because we like a certain art form of pseudomation and destruction and that sort of thing too. And it's just fun seeing giant monsters, roll around and kick the crap out of each other as well, and just explosions. So there is an element of wanting to just sort of relive those moments of being a kid again as well. Um, I certainly do think for those of us who are in our 20s and older, it's a big part in it as well. Um, and I think Rigoni was right, and I don't remember everything he wrote in that article. Maybe he did write something about nostalgia and sentimentality in his article. I don't know. It's been the last time I saw that blog post was like 7 years ago, so I don't really remember much other than the Japanese-ness part of that post. But
You're finally bringing this up.
I mean, I thought that was kind of clear the way I was starting this whole thing off, but
Yeah.
but anyway, I do think for those of us who are older fans, uh, reliving those moments of wanting to be a kid again, to just have that innocent fun where we cared about how the films and the monsters sort of looked, but nowhere near as much as we do as adults. As adults, we tend to nitpick at everything. We will try to find every flaw imaginable, whereas as a child, you sit down and you're just blown away most of the time by whatever you see. And yeah, on some level, you can kind of tell when something looks good or doesn't, but the large scheme of things, you don't. And you just take it for what it is. You enjoy it, and that's all that matters to you. I remember as a kid when I first started watching these Godzilla films, what mattered to me first and foremost as I watched these films was Godzilla using his fire breath, and was he using it a lot? If not, I had some problems with that. But then two, um, were there model buildings being destroyed and or some fun monster battles to be had as well? But other than that, it's like, I don't care. I'm seeing these giant type creatures on my TV screen in a film for an hour and a half, causing havoc and fighting each other and all that stuff, and aliens and stuff, and I didn't realize as I got older, hey, some of these stories really don't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. But as a kid, I'm just like, ape aliens and a giant mechanical Godzilla, and they're fighting, and Godzilla's bleeding. Oh my god, is he gonna live? And there's a puppy dog god over here. Is he gonna actually help Godzilla defeat Mega Godzilla? And that's the only thing that mattered, as a kid. It's just, you just take it, even if it's complete and utter nonsense. You just take it and you just have fun with it. And that's what's so great about a lot of these films as well, because like I said, maybe 98, 99% of us got exposed to this stuff as kids, and we became hooked and have remained hooked. Watching these films and these shows gives us an opportunity to live those small moments as kids.
Mm-hmm.
Those innocent moments, those innocent days. Maybe take us back to the first time we saw that film, or a couple times when we saw that film or whatever. That certainly happens to me once in a while when I watch a movie. It doesn't have to be a kaiju movie. Sometimes I watch something like Rocky IV and I'm reminded of one time I watched it in the past, and I'm just like, boy, that was a great time when I watched it. And here I am watching it again, and that sort of thing. And it just takes you back to those nostalgic, sentimental times. And I think for us older fans, that plays a huge part in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like with a lot of these, especially when it comes to um, Godzilla versus the Sea Monster and Godzilla versus Megalon, like those two movies are like the first two Godzilla movies I've seen, particularly with the both of us, Godzilla vs. Sea Monster has a special place in our heart because it's the very first Godzilla movie that we've seen together back in 1992. Holy shit. I can't believe it's been close to 9 years. Not 9 years. 29 years since we've been fans ever since. I can't believe it's been that long ago. But yeah, it's like every time whenever I see that movie, it just takes me back to that certain time period, like from a long time ago in this like certain room of our really old house that we used to live in back in those days. And it's like, man, just it's like some of those times that we've had when we were little kids, like it sort of was the good days that we've had
Yeah.
back
When
then.
you're a kid, it's the good days, even though your parents are like, oh my God, these are awful times. But as a kid, you don't know any of that stuff. You don't understand it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like with some of the TV shows, we haven't really seen much of the tokusatsu stuff when we were a kid. We've only just seen some of that stuff in the
Power
last.
Rangers Superhuman Samurai was about as close as we got.
Yeah, it's like I think that was
Beetleborg.
probably like with the Power Rangers. I think that's probably right around the same time period when we started seeing.
93 was when it debuted here.
Yeah, so but with like I would say Johnny Sacco and like Ultraman and some of these other things we've seen at a later time period, like in the last several years, back in the 2010s.
Lots.
It's like when we started seeing some of these TV shows. It's like it would have been nice to have seen that stuff when we were kids, but obviously since we've grown up during that time period, especially with me now seeing the whole series of Johnny Sacco and his flying robot within the past year or two. It's like it would have been nice to have seen that as a kid. I've sort of criticized that
Yeah.
more in
We
the
both
past,
have.
like the past 8 straight episodes when we were talking about that TV show and stuff. But there are at least some good aspects of that show in certain episodes that we've talked about. But overall, it was sort of in the middle. Overall, for me at least. Yeah, so it would have been nice to have seen some of these TV shows as when we were a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I've really I mean, so many of us have always loved movies and all that, but I have found myself over the last 4 to 5 years especially really falling like I was buying up movies like crazy starting in 2016, and I sort of tapered off because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just buying just about everything that's on the shelf. So like, for example, this is a film I saw clips of when I was a kid, but have never seen the whole film, and I still haven't, but I bought it, with Schwarzenegger. And I like Schwarzenegger, and I heard some interesting things about the film, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's 80s. It probably looks and it probably has some really dumb, stupid moments. But you know what? It seems like it's fun. It seems like it's going to make me escape the real world for a while. I'm going to buy it and one of these years watch it. And then let's see. Where other. Well, anyways, I got a couple of Van Damme films downstairs too. One of them is Kickboxer, and the other one is Bloodsport. I've seen Bloodsport like a handful of times. In many ways, it's sort of a dumb film, but entertaining as heck. Kickboxer, I've seen once all the way through, and it has its dumb, silly moments as well. It's got the Van Damme clapping dancing scene in it. It's really goofy as shit, but it's funny. But it's a fun film, and that's just how it is. And I've really, and like Twilight Zone, I've talked Twilight Zone a number of times over the last year on this podcast. I got books. In fact, I got one right here behind my computer. Just a second here. I just started reading this. The Twilight Zone Companion. Um, love this stuff, and just sort of the history of shows and how they make you feel and all that stuff, and all that. It just, so many of us have gotten big into films, and I think the internet has definitely helped a lot of that, because it's connected a lot of us together to talk about this stuff. Yeah, has helped as well.
And like for me, when I grew up too, besides watching the Godzilla films, like I've grown up watching all those Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. You know, from like his some of the obscure ones, Total Recall or Stop or My Mother Would Shoot, and the like, and or was it Wango and Tango? I think it was.
Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash. That's it.
Tango and Tango.
Yeah, it was sort of along that line, but yeah, it's like some of those obscure sort of movies or Cobra. Oh man, it's some of those things just take you back, and yeah, I don't even know what else to talk about. It's
Yeah.
like some of those things, and yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think with that, I think we're ready to close, aren't we, with our Kaijupalooza?
Yeah, I think right now we're basically right on our 3-hour mark, to be exact.
That wasn't planned. We were just like, if we have a shorter show, that's okay. But yeah, I mean, 2020. I mean, what a
The shit
what an
show.
awful year. There's been some silver linings in it. Some of it we talked about earlier in the show. And then in our own personal lives too, there have been some silver linings along the way too. But then there's been a lot of loss and a lot of nervousness and uncertainty
It's like
about
for
this
me.
year.
It's like for me. I used to work from home for about a month and a half, from March to beginning of May, and then currently right now working from home. Right now, and we're not even entirely sure when we're going back to the office. Um, like we only have maybe at least a max number of 10 people going and working at the office
Mhm.
there currently. So it's like majority of us are just sort of working from home there. So yeah, that's sort of the silver lining on my end. There.
Yeah. But thankfully there's a light at the end of the tunnel with this whole pandemic. It's going to take about another 6 or so months before we really start to see some changes. I personally don't think G-Fest will be held again next year, because by the time more vaccines will be readily available, it's going to be about a month out roughly from the time G-Fest is ready to kick off. But who knows? We'll just kind of see how things play out in the next odd number of months.
Yeah,
But
it's like if G-Fest doesn't happen again next year and gets postponed another year after that, I know I've at least got a backup plan just in case.
yeah, and so we really hope that all of you that have been listening to us over the over the last 9 months, that you have had a very safe and as good as it can get 2020. And hopefully 2021 will be a lot better. It can't get any worse. So like the old saying goes, the one good thing about being down, the only way to go is up. So 2021 should be better. It still is going to take a little while, but next year we're going to see a totally different world than what we're seeing right now, and I think it's all going to be for the better. And So just stay safe. We haven't figured out yet when our next episode's going to be. Like I said, we're going to be changing some format things here coming up, starting, episode. Jason and I have talked about what we're going to do with the opening of 2021 for the first 1 to 2 months. I would like for it to be 2 months at least, maybe even longer, would be to do commentaries. We got a ton of films still left on our commentaries list we need to touch upon. I think it would be a fun, entertaining way to kick off the new year, and hopefully a year that's going to be a lot more fun than this one was. And I just love the commentaries. We always have a lot of fun with them.
Yeah,
And
it was a pretty shitty year to celebrate our 10 years this
we can
year.
redo it next year.
It would have been nice to, you know, have done something special. Although you can probably count the Daikaiju Fest as being sort of the main highlight of our 10 years.
You can make a new graphic that says Daikaiju Network 10 years hyphen the redo and put
Redux.
2021 in parentheses at the end.
maybe for 15 years or something. If we get there.
Yeah, like hopefully you've had a good year, that you've all been safe and healthy, and like I said, the silver linings we've got in Gamera, new improved Gamera films, Warning from Space, Ultraman stuff, and God knows what else that we didn't even cover. 2021 is going to be better. Godzilla vs. Kong, more Ultraman stuff from my understanding. In fact, Ultraman Taro, I believe, is coming out on Blu-ray.
Oh, it's already out.
Next.
Yeah, I think, let me see here.
It can't be, because I pre-ordered that thing. Hold on.
Let me check here, because I know I was...
Ultraman Taro, January, I got in my pre-orders here.
Oh, no, never mind. I'm thinking of something else, sorry. It says
I was
going to say.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Hopefully we've made your 2020 a little bit more fun. Despite all the crappiness that has gone on. And I'm losing my voice. Been talking for a while now. So much for just your support. Again, to remind everybody, Jason and I don't make a single penny off of this show. We don't try to raise money or anything like that. We've never done anything like that, although we've discussed it, but we just can never figure anything out properly. And there have just been other things going on as well. But all of this is free. We do it because we love it, and just
more or less
having all of you guys listen, download, or watch us, however you find us and prefer to listen to us. Maybe some of you like to see our ugly mugs, I guess. But we really do appreciate it, and just eyeballs is all we really care about, and just hoping that we provide you guys with some fun entertainment for an hour and a half to 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, speaking of listening or watching us, you can obviously see down below on our ticker there. You can listen to us over at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and as well as TuneIn, and as well as you can watch us over on YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook Live, and D Live as well. And you can also if you're on YouTube, you can hit that subscribe button down below, and as well as hit the notification bell to get the latest up to date of when we go live or upload a video and the like. And you can also like and subscribe to us on other social media websites. Just search for Daikaiju Network, and you can also follow us at our own website at daikaijunetwork.com. And I just launched a new version of the home landing page there, where you can navigate things much easier compared to the previous homepage there. You can also watch us live there directly on our website if you want to, and check some of the past episodes on our audio player bar that's right below the web browser there. So, unless if there's
Intend on doing more stuff on our website. I know I said that this time a year ago, and I didn't, and the pandemic hit, and then that really screwed things up. So I'm really hoping that next year I'm going to be more active on producing content for the site.
so, otherwise, if there's nothing else that you want to bring up, we can close out the episode.
Just want to say once again to everybody, thank you so much for listening and or watching to us over this rough year. And again, we just hope that we were at least a little bit of a bright spot in this rough year.
All right. So with that, thanks for watching, and just gonna go out here with the outro theme, and we'll see you guys sometime in next month in 2021 here, and we'll
Happy New Year.
yeah, and we'll make sure to make an announcement of when our next episode is going to be here. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.